Hey there, welcome to the Real Guy Podcast. It's Captain Jeff and Lamont Jones, and we're pretty fired up today because it's almost 4th of July. And being 4th of July, it only means one thing.
Jaws.
That's right. That's when it all went down. It was all about the big 4th of July weekend. It was a big influence on the holiday, and it's been a big influence on a lot of the fishermen out there that I know, especially my age. I'd say Jaws has to be the number one movie ever talked about in modern day history.
Yep.
And considering that movie's 40 years, how many years old?
42?
42
or 43?
Old, and people are still talking about Jaws. So we decided we were going to do a two-part series. We're going to talk about the Jaws and the fishermen in Jaws today, because we know that a lot of you guys, when you're out there fishing, especially when it's slow, you guys get into these dumb conversations. So we decided we're going to put it on the podcast. Now, we recently got accepted to the Waypoint TV platform. Lamont, I'm not so sure that the people on this platform are used to hearing podcasts the way we're doing them anyway.
Well, I've only just started poking around Waypoint and looking at the other guys and shows that are on there. So Waypoint's probably in for a little bit of an awakening once we start consistently uploading to their platform.
What do you mean an awakening?
Well, I see that there's some hunting stuff and there's some fishing stuff, and we kind of take our own approach to those things. It's not going to be a lot of how-to here or travel log stuff. It's more opinion-based, and we kind of go outside, to use the phrase, go outside the envelope on the content that we produce.
So you don't think anybody else is going to do a Jaws thing this 4th of July?
No, they'll do one next year after they heard ours. Then everyone will start doing one.
Well, I don't know if these guys are even ready for the two-part series.
Right.
Because you really got to settle in for the second part. And I was talking to the Worm about it, and I was talking to a few other people about it, and they think it's a good idea. And they think people are going to do it, and we're going to get into what Lamont and I did to celebrate Jaws and how you guys can participate and have fun with us. I think you guys are going to dig it. But I don't know. I can't tell you how many times Lamont and I have actually got into full-fledged arguments about the characters in Jaws. I don't know. I always thought Quint was some sort of badass.
That's a mistake the young people fall into.
So what, you think that as years go by and you learn, you get more wisdom?
Well, when you're young, you look at Quint and you're like, oh, wow, he's so grizzled. He's got shark jaws all over the walls of his house or his workshop or whatever that thing is. But then when you mature and you grow up, you're like, Quint's a loser.
What do you mean, total loser? He had everybody, totally shook down in Amityville. Is it Amity or Amityville?
It's just straight Amity.
Amity.
Yeah, Amityville it's confusing because that book came out around the same time, the Amityville Horror.
Right.
So it was confusing, but it's Amity, New York, 1975. And I mean, look at the shape that Quint is in. The inside of his house or whatever that boathouse thing he has is all that unfinished wood, and he basically sells shark jaws for a living.
Right. He's not like the big charter captain, the guy that's got all the world records. Homeboy's doing shark jaws and shine.
And shine.
Is that moonshine he's making in there?
He's making his own hooch. He's making his own firewater and captaining or guiding.
No,
part-time.
That's captaining.
That's captaining.
Right. When you're taking people out on the Orca, you're the captain. You're supposed to have a mate. And it's a little different than guiding.
Well, early on, I'm sure most people that are listening to this thing are probably going to watch Jaws a couple times between now and the 4th of July or after. And the early scenes when the city council is up there and they're having the big meeting about whether to close the beaches or whatever, look who Quint shows up with.
Like the people he hangs around?
His boy, like his mate or whatever, is even more of a busted down valise case than he is.
He looks like a little troll rolling around City Hall.
Right. You compare that to wherever, to say, like, you know, the Palm Beach Sailfish Club or Monty's or any of the places that we have down here, and those guys would look like complete doofuses. That flies down in the Keys.
You think that they could look that way down in the Keys?
You can get by selling shark jaws in the Keys and with ratted up clothing and looking like you haven't shaved in 4 days and all that stuff.
But that's not happening in Palm Beach or Ocean Reef.
Or Fort Lauderdale or Ocean Reef or Monty's or, you know, any of the big marinas.
So Quentin, he couldn't even get a drink down there at the Lauderdale Yacht Club. Like, they wouldn't even serve him.
Then they call the cops. They see him coming through the gates. They'd ask him, what are you, the landscaper or something? Like, what do you need?
And he wouldn't be talking down to nobody down there at the Lauderdale Yacht Club like he was talking down to people in Amity.
If you know, without spoilers, you know, if you haven't seen the movies or whatever, I'm going to give you a chance here because we're going to reveal a couple of spoilers. But in part 2, now it's all on Brody's shoulders. There wasn't a real guy that stepped up in Quint's place.
There wasn't another real guy in Amity that could fill Quint's shoes.
Not one. It became Brody. Part 1, he couldn't even drive the boat. He sat in his car on the ferry, all that other stuff. And then in part 2, you know, they start having problems again. The deputy, he can drive the boat, barely.
Barely.
But, you know, the kids are out there, they're lost on those sailboats. And you would think like a normal place like Fort Lauderdale, if that happened, man, you'd have a dozen sport fish flying out of the inlet going to get those kids.
Right.
Here, it's Brody again, who a year previously, you know, sat in his car on the ferry.
Well, I don't know. They go out there, and Quint immediately impresses me. And I'll tell you why. Is because he has the same exact combo that my old man used when we started bluefin fishing in, like, 1975. That old brown Fenwick rod with the giant Senator on there and the straps and everything to strap himself in. And as I'm thinking that Brody's really set up, you know, to kick some serious ass, he's going to get this shark. You're looking at him what? Like a complete doofus? A failure? Like he's like a show?
I think he's full of it. I don't think he's ever caught one of those before. If you look around his boathouse, those are a lot of real small shark jaws he's sporting. I don't see a lot of great white jaws hanging up on the walls. It's a lot of like 3 and 4 foot sharks.
That is true.
You know? And he talks a big game. When he first insults Hooper, that's insecurity coming out right there. The whole "let me show me your hands" thing. That's Hooper's insecurities.
That's Quint's insecurities.
Quint's insecurities, correct.
Trying to talk down Hooper.
Trying to talk down to Hooper, Hooper's got his own boat. It's pretty nice. He's got Lawrence. He's got all that stuff on there. Hooper is essentially a real guy, and Quint, being insecure, has to try to knock him down a few pegs. It didn't really work. Like, yeah, Hooper's soft and everything, and was like, "God, this guy's crazy," or whatever. But in terms of being a real guy, in terms of like, you know, what's he say? I'm talking about porkers. You know, I'm not talking about dogfish. Oh, like the dogfish jaws that are all over your walls?
And you figure Hooper's, from the outside looking in, he's got Quint all sized up. Like, this guy's a major doofus. He doesn't know what he's dealing with.
Hooper, being a university-type person, probably hasn't been around too many guys like Quint. Right. So Quint's personality and stuff scares him a little bit, and the unpredictability. But Hooper is not intimidated by, you know, being inexperienced. He's not looking at Quint as like, "Oh, wow, you know, I hope I don't make a fool of myself." He's done a lot of excursions with big boats, great whites.
And he's thinking to himself, this guy's used to taking tourists out to catch small sharks. And he can pretty much, just like the charter captains here, the shark fish, you can pretty much, any captain can do that and get by.
Right. Put out a big
sizing
bait.
him right up and realizes that he's got no clue what he's dealing with. I don't know. I was pissed. The thing that like totally pissed me off about Quint, mostly, he never showed anybody what he was using for bait.
Right.
Which, you know, even at a young age when I watched that movie, like I wanted to know what the heck he was using for bait.
Right.
And he never showed anybody.
No.
And then not having a live well on the boat or any live bait today makes me feel like Quint just didn't have what it took.
I mean, if you watch Shark Week, we all watch Shark Week and stuff. They don't fish for those great whites, kind of like you fish for marlin or tarpon with either free lining your bait out there or getting a little bit of a troll on. You kind of tease those things in. Like you give him something first on the rope, like the big tuna. And then that thing comes and he bites on it and you pull it and he lets it go. And that thing's 10 feet from the boat. And then they finally get a hook into him. I don't even know if Quint's whole approach was even worthwhile. That's how you get him. Like you said, if you don't know what kind of bait he had on there, he probably had on what? Bunker?
I don't know. Mackerel?
A whole mackerel?
Whole mackerel, maybe? I don't know. The chum looked subpar to me, but it worked. At least the fish came up to the boat. And whatever bait he was using obviously worked. The fish ate the bait, but not showing us that. It's just, I don't know, a little disrespectful maybe? Like, I don't know. Dude, we had a whole channel on YouTube. It's just about bait.
Just about bait.
And they don't even talk about bait. Mm-mm. Even Hooper. Nothing about the bait. I don't know. Hooper to me, I don't know. He's like one of them kids I went to college with. You know, I would talk to him about marlin fishing or snook fishing or tarpon fishing. And then, he had something to say about stripers or bluefish or whatever. And, kind of like Quint, I look down my nose at those people because, they just don't have the fishery that we have.
True. Hooper is one of the guys that probably knows everything and has done nothing. So he has all the knowledge. He can tell you everything about the shark. But has he actually gone out there and done it? He shouldn't have been so surprised by the size of the shark anyway, considering he had the bite radius.
Right.
Which he should have been able to extrapolate and at least get within a couple feet, or a couple, 100 pounds or so.
All right, so he had the bite radius. He knew that the Kintner kid was not in the stomach of the shark.
Before they cut it open.
Cut it open.
Right.
And he cut it open for what? Just to make sure.
Because nobody else believed. Because he needed Brody to be like, because they were all convinced that
the tiger shark was the shark, and that the problem was over. So Brody and Hooper go down there. They cut the shark open. Hooper already knows that the kid's not in there. And now Brody is like trying to learn all the stuff like hyperspeed.
On the fly. On the fly, of course.
Right.
He knows nothing. He knows that the little makos or whatever they are can poke their nose through the bottom of the dinghy, and whatever he's got in those few encyclopedias, those shark attack books that he has. But it's a decent combo of a decent trio of people because they do need Quint at some point.
Right.
Now, I think that Hooper and Brody should have shot and killed Quint inside the boathouse.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. When he does the whole handshake thing, give me your hands, boy, like there's a rash of disrespect going on in this country where people should be shooting people on the spot. And that's one of them. Like, you're in the thing, he throws you the rope, tie me a sheep shank or whatever that thing is, give me your hands.
Bam, shoot him.
He should have been pulling out right then. You don't disrespect a man like that.
All right. I don't know. Maybe
Did you see the pitcher the other night in the College World Series? Grill the kid down?
I did see that.
That batter, he has to shoot that guy. Otherwise, he's a coward for life.
I think maybe punch him in the face might be a little bit more appropriate than shooting a guy. But I feel you. No, I think a lot of the reason people will pull that kind of stuff is because they know they're not going to get punched in the face. So, they do whatever they want. And maybe that's what Quint was doing out there. What the heck was Quint doing? When Quint was losing it out there, smashing the VHF, running the boat till it overheated and all that stuff. What the hell?
That was bad captaining. That was terrible captaining. Who knows? Had he exploded like that before on other charters? I don't know, but you probably suspect he has. The smashing of his own VHF radio, very dumb.
That was dumb.
Very dumb. I can see getting mad and breaking something or throwing something overboard, breaking a rod in half, kick the chair or something. But, dude, you don't smash the VHF.
All right, let's get back to the drinking.
Okay.
Because what did they bring out for the fishing trip? Apricot brandy?
2 cases of apricot
Two cases of apricot brandy? Huh. Now, why didn't they bring Homeboy's Shine? Because the Shine sucks.
Shine sucks, and Shine, you don't get a lot of latitude. Like on your 3rd Shine, you're on your way to ER. Your 4th, you're on your way to the grave.
So the apricot brandy, he knew that they would sit around and sip on that.
And they got totaled.
That
So
was
if they would have been drinking Shine, they'd have been passed out on the floor.
That's the only time in the whole movie that I thought Quint and Hooper were actually on the same page.
Right.
When they were bombed at the table inside the boat. And, like, I thought they were actually bonding and there was going to be some sort of unity. And then we were going to see the big grand finale at the end where, everybody was victorious. But it didn't happen that way.
No. No, and I thought that it was kind of weak that they stopped fishing the night session. Like, you've already got 1 barrel into the thing, dude. Go find it. Like, oh, sun went down. Time to start hitting the apricot brandy.
No, I think that was normal back then. I mean, pretty much every scene in that movie, as the sun went down,
Drinks came out.
right, the drinks came out. And it was pretty natural. We made a post about that on Facebook. People, thought the same thing. But yeah, the drinking that went on, a lot different than today.
Yeah.
A lot different than today. Guys in sport fishes today are doing fruit drinks.
What do you mean? With alcohol?
Right, pina coladas, friggin' daiquiris. But they got all these new names for them and stuff. Punches, rum punches.
Well, as soon as you hear somebody make their excuse for why they drink vodka because scotch has all that sugar in it, get out of my face.
That's
like
alky.
everybody's all vodka'd up right now. And, rewinding a little bit back to when Hooper showed up at Brody's house with the 2 bottles of wine.
Red and white.
That told you right then that he's a chump. Dude, don't come to my house with white. All right? That's for chicks.
Well, dude, he was Brody's wife.
And then he should have handed her the white and poured the red for them. Like, dude, you don't just red all the way. And chicks drink red too. You're fine. But like when the girls do their thing, they drink white on ice and stuff. But I don't mess with white.
I don't know. Drinking was basically every scene in the movie. From the second it started, the kids were out there drinking, getting high on the beach. She decides she's going to get nude. She jumps in the water, bombed. The other kid's so bombed he can't even get in the water.
The boyfriend passes out.
Right, and then the next scene. And there was a long time before the fishing scene, but the ultimate peak was them getting bombed that night. So if they never would have took the time out to get bombed, then we wouldn't have had the scene.
Right, yeah. Yeah. And then after the Kittner boy, Brody goes home and has like a Hennessy or something in a big brandy glass. A cognac or something.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kittner thing. The Kittner thing was that's when it hit home for everybody. That's when it really hit home for everybody. Now that was before the town hall meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We had the girl. They reclassified that as a boating accident, which allowed the beach to stay open, which allowed the Kittner kid to get eaten. Right. And then they decided they had a problem. The poor Kittner kid was like a test tube baby or whatever, like a guinea pig. Like, oh, we better close the beach now. And the mayor, Larry Vaughn, so worried about that 4th of July income that they're going to get. I get it. You see the influx of all the New Yorkers and New Jerseys and Connecticut people showing up in that town. But what's a life worth? Like,
worth a lot more than those blazers he was wearing. Was he paying up for those blazers? Were those like expensive in those days?
Of course.
Like places like Moss and Hoffman were selling those things?
They're still selling them.
I don't know.
You can definitely get the anchor jacket, anchor pants, sailing flags, all that stuff. That's big money.
There's yacht club stuff.
Yep.
Rodney Dangerfield stuff. Caddyshack.
But they're also not. It's not fast fashion where they're disposable. That could have been his daddy's jacket. Like a lot of that stuff gets passed down.
On.
Sure. And waspy people, like they buy nice stuff, but then they tend to hold on to it for a few generations.
Well, that was very consistent in the movie. Those were definitely northern people. None of that stuff would fly down here.
No.
None of it. The way the chicks dressed, the makeup, no plastic surgery. No. Nobody in the movie had plastic surgery.
Nobody was good looking except Ellen Brody.
Brody's wife was pretty hot, which I can't quite like not get off that when we did the whole show.
Yeah.
When we watched the whole movie, like my whole thing was like Brody's wife is really the hottest chick in the whole movie. That's how you know that Spielberg guy is really, really talented.
Spielberg's really talented, and Ellen, the actress Lorraine Gray or Lorraine Gary. Either way, she's the wife of Sid Sheinberg, who was the big boss at Universal Pictures. And if you know anything about movie studios and movie moguls, like they tend to look at women that star in movies as, would anybody want to bang her? If the answer is no, they don't put her on the screen. That's changed now.
A lot.
But in the big studio days, that was the number one question.
No, things have changed. All right, I'm trying to think of the posters I had on the wall when the original Jaws came out. I had Farrah Fawcett on the wall and Cheryl Ladd. They're like two biggest supermodels of the day, and that was like the top of the echelon. Dude, we got them walking down Fort Lauderdale Beach by the hundreds now.
Right.
Like they're nothing.
Right.
Anyway, Lamont, tell them what we're going to kind of prep them up for the next episode of Jaws that we're going to release. And how we're doing it and what we expect and what they can do.
All right, everybody, we're going advanced podcasting here because what we did was we did a full running commentary of Jaws that's syncable, which means you put on the podcast, you put in your DVD, or you crank up your iTunes or your media center, wherever you have your movies. And then you listen to the beginning of the podcast, and it'll tell you what to do. You queue up the movie, get past the FBI warning and all that stuff. And then when you see the Universal logo, Universal, an MCA company, when you see that title page on the screen, go into focus, you hit pause. And then if you can hit pause on the podcast also, get yourself settled, get a couple of beers or whatever, because it's 2 hours and 4 minutes.
2 hours and 4 minutes, yep.
And then you wait for the countdown. We probably do it like a minute in on the podcast or 2 minutes in, something like that. And we say, hey, all right, we're going to press play in 3, 2, 1, press play. When you hear that cue, you press play on your movie, and you'll be watching the movie along with us at the same time as we're giving the comments.
And we're going to release this on 4th of July.
4th of July weekend.
Right.
The biggest money-making weekend in that town's history.
And you guys are going to be able to watch the movie with Lamont and I as a podcast. And if you enjoyed this recording at all, or you're a big Jaws fan, or you have these conversations about the fishing characters in Jaws with your buddies, tune into the podcast because this is a 4th of July thing.
4th of July. So you'll need a copy of Jaws, no matter how you get it. If you can go to some shady website that's going to show it, or you own it on DVD or Blu-ray, or maybe you have it on Amazon or on iTunes or whatever. But however you get your copy of Jaws, get one before the 4th of July.
Good advice.
And then we'll release the podcast. You queue the two up. Maybe some of you guys have done some other cues. Maybe you've heard other movie commentaries. If you buy a special edition Blu-ray movie or DVD, sometimes they have secondary audio tracks where, the movie plays as normal, but instead of hearing the audio from the movie, you hear the director talking. It's essentially what we've done here, except they're two different components. You're going to have the movie and the podcast. You on the queue, they'll both be matched. They'll be synced, and they'll stay in sync all the way up until the end of the movie, 2 hours and 4 minutes. So it's a long watch.
Well, dude, it's the 4th of July. It's a 4th of July weekend.
It's a 4th of July tradition. I know I'm going to get in a few Jaws before, even.
How many Jaws are you getting in on an annual basis? How many times are you viewing the original Jaws? Not Jaws 2, 3, or 4, just the original.
Now I've slowed down. Now it's probably, 25 times a year.
You're doing
But
once.
probably, 20 years ago, it was probably 50 to 100 times a year, getting in back-to-backs or getting in multiples during the week. Just for the hell of it, if you watch it every week, Jaws is now 44 years old. If you watch it just once a week for, 44 years, that's over 2,000 viewings.
So you think you've been to Jaws for 2,000?
I'm definitely over 1,000. I don't know if I have 2,000 in, but I'm probably around 1,500.
Jesus.
Because 20 years is 1,000.
Right. And if you guys aren't in the thousands, don't feel bad. Lamont's totally crazy, and he watches like 2 movies a day every day. Now, I've gotten a Jaws in at least once a year for the last 40 years. At least once, probably closer to twice. So I'm good for probably 80 viewings of the original Jaws movie.
Approaching, give it 100.
All right.
Round up to 100. You've seen it 100 times.
It sounds good, 100. Yeah, I've seen it about 100 times. And maybe that's why Lamont was able to read through and show people the light that Quint was a total moron and an idiot. And Hooper actually had something going for him, which is obviously true because Hooper lived and Homeboy died, and Hooper's still going today.
Hooper's still going. He wasn't available for part 2 because he was on his next excursion.
Yeah, he had
Right.
things.
Yeah, they're like, call Matt Hooper. No, you can't even reach him. He's on the Aurora, down like in Australia, chasing great whites.
On a real boat instead
Right.
of that piece of crap orca that sunk on him and everything. Anyway, listen, thanks for tuning in to the Real Guy Podcast. If you're into Jaws, if you're into our podcast, if you're into Waypoint TV, reach out to me. Let me know how you like the podcast so far. Also, make sure you give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. That's always a big deal. We've got a ton of them so far, and we appreciate it. But keep the ratings coming because that seems to drive the whole, iTunes and how they push the friggin' podcast and all that.
Jeff, a lot of people have been asking me, what's the best portal for people to listen to? Which one does you the most benefit?
I like to listen to everything on Spotify.
Okay.
And main reason I like Spotify is because I'm usually putting it on in the car on my way down to Miami, and I just click on it, and I don't really have to type anything. There's like already a button for me to push. So I like Spotify, but by far most people are doing iTunes.
iTunes, yeah.
Oh man, like by far.
Yeah.
It's like 88% iTunes, 12% everything else, and Spotify probably takes up the 8% of the 12, and everybody else is sharing 4%. I don't know. We're going on iHeartRadio soon. I heard a lot of people listen to stuff on that.
Yeah.
And the Waypoint TV guys have really been good as far as getting more exposure on more platforms. But if you do like the podcast, if it's something that you really like, email me, Jeff@Lunkerdog.com. Let me know what you like. If you hate something, let me know that too. I ain't soft. So, if it ain't good, I want to know that too. And stay tuned for the big 4th of July celebration. Sit down, watch Jaws with Lamont Jones and Captain Jeff, the Lunkerdog. And we will be releasing some more fishing philosophies. I think we're on episode number 5 for fishing philosophies, and that's turned out really good. It's a shorter podcast. People really liked it. Lamont and I banged one out on harvesting fish, and man, a lot of people like that one. So we're going to be doing more of those, and happy 4th of July, and you're just running the dog with Lamont Jones and Captain Jeff.